There, guys. So, this week's episode, I'm just going to put a warning up front just before that there are some discussions of some very potentially upsetting topics about, certain things that may be triggering and upsetting to certain listeners. So, I do warn you that there will be some discussion about some very dark topics. So listen at your own risk, I guess. I don't want any of you listening to this and then getting upset by it because of what we talk about. So I'm just warning you, there is some dark discussions that will take place in this episode for American Beauty, which is today's episode. So I hope you enjoy, those of you who decide to listen to it. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of At the Movies with William Fletcher. As per usual, I am your host, William Fletcher. And I am joined for, I don't know, fourth time now? Or something like that, with Hannah.
Something like...
Yeah.
Hello. I think this is the fourth one.
Yeah.
Hang on. Yeah, it is the fourth one.
Fourth one, yeah, okay. I lose track of who's done however many episodes.
That's fair.
But yeah, you're on for this week to talk about American Beauty. Which,
yes. It's very fresh in my mind. I finished watching this about 45 minutes ago.
Okay. Yeah, so, and I watched this last night, but I'd seen it like 2 or 3 times before. Where I was watching it from, I guess I started watching it a previous time and then didn't finish it. So it started at like 30 minutes in, so I had to just restart. Did you know anything about this movie before you started watching it?
I think I briefly knew. Like, I knew bits and pieces of it, really.
Okay.
But not like, I hadn't seen the whole thing before earlier today. But, yeah, I knew, like, certain scenes that are shown places and the basic storyline for one character, and that's about it, so.
Yeah. I'd seen, before I saw this a few years ago, when I was about, 15 maybe, so...
Oh, gosh.
Recent. Yeah, what do you, like, I really like this film. I'm gonna be relatively positive on it for the most part. Someone has never seen it, what did you make of it?
I will say, based on the main actor, Kevin Spacey, trigger warning Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
Considering his personal life and the film, it doesn't age the best.
No, it definitely does not.
No.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't make it.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was hard to look past the Kevin Spacey of it all a little bit, but no, I thought it was pretty good.
Okay.
I wouldn't be saying it's the best thing I've ever seen in my life, but it wasn't terrible.
Okay. Well, that's... Okay. Well, because I feel like, people sort of, I don't think...
It's very hyped up. Everyone's like, oh, American Beauty, it's amazing. It's the best thing ever written. I'm like it's good.
Yeah. I do think now people don't look at it the same way now.
No.
For multiple reasons, but I do think, like, people sort of do turn their nose up at it now. I think beyond Kevin Spacey being in it, I think it's a film that now...
A lot of it hasn't aged well.
No, not particularly so. To sort of begin, it opens with Jane, not the main girl, but she's like Kevin Spacey's daughter in the film, being recorded and talking about how she wants to kill her dad, which I always sort of forget about when I watch this film. It feels very... Yeah, it sort of feels a bit added on and feels slightly disconnected.
Yeah, and it kind of doesn't actually match with a lot of the rest of the movie either. It's kind of just like, okay.
Yeah, it sort of was like, it's trying to, I don't know, give a hook like to sort of hook an audience, but it doesn't really work, and sort of is more like it's not necessary. I don't think it's needed for the film.
No, they could have jumped straight in, because from there it goes to like an opening monologue. It could have gone straight to that opening monologue and been perfectly fine.
Yeah, exactly. I think like if it had sort of opened, with Kevin Spacey's monologue, I do think it would have worked and sort of flowed a bit better, and definitely wouldn't. It definitely, like the opening, it's jarring. Just before we started recording this, you said you made notes as you were watching this.
Yeah. It was mostly just to keep up with what's happening, because I have the memory of the goldfish and can't remember anything.
Mm-hmm. So what was your first note then?
It was to do with the whole start of the movie, because the whole first monologue is him going about how he works his regular job, his regular family, his regular street, the typical...
Yeah.
They go like the white picket fence family, happy days.
Yeah.
So, and how his life is very mundane, very...
It's a lot of the film is Lester Burnham, his sort of discontent with his life.
With life.
And he's sort of missing out and sort of wanting to sort of recapture what, he used to, sort of his younger days and that. And he goes to some levels that are not particularly justified in some like...
Well, half of them are illegal to start with. And yeah. Basically, I think the main center point of the plot of the film is he's having a midlife crisis. Really.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, he's definitely not. He's because I know. I mean, I haven't experienced one myself, but you sort of hear about men who sort of reach a certain age and then they start, buying expensive, fancy sports cars, or they start doing all these other things and
start going to the gym, and they start having affairs with younger women, and basically trying to fill a void that they're having in their lives for getting older.
Yeah.
It happens to women too, where I always joke with my mother, because she basically, once we all got a bit older, sold her family car and bought this bloody VW convertible. And I'm like, Mum, it's a midlife crisis car.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't
She's like,
seem...
No, it's not. I'm like, yeah, it is, Mum.
Yeah, I think... I'm lucky because my parents haven't done that kind of thing. They are very... Well, at least outwardly, they seem happy. So, I would assume they probably are.
Oh. My mum's divorced, so, add fuel to the fire, I guess.
That's divorce is probably not going to help things. That definitely makes things...
No, this was after she got divorced. She's like, well, all my kids are old now and can drive, so I don't need to have the 7-seater car. I'm going to get the fun convertible.
Yeah,
I'm like, Mum, it's not practical, you idiot.
Yeah, it's not... But, yeah, it's very interesting to watch, sort of, people sort of... change and, reach a set, like, because, I feel like a lot of people at certain points in their life, it depends what they get to, but, people get to their 40s or whatever, and they sort of are like, oh, I'm getting old and I hate it, and then, people in their 30s, they do it, like, again, and it's just sort of as a thing of people getting to certain ages and realizing, oh, shit, I'm old now, like, and it's not...
Yeah, it's like they get to a certain age, they go, shit, I've hit 30 or 40 and I haven't achieved what I wanted to, and I'm miserable and I need to fill that void. And yeah, I think that's kind of the main plot for not even just Lester. I feel like also all the adult characters in this movie are similar sort of things. Like they're all seeking trying to find fulfillment in their lives.
Yeah, like Annette Bening, who is Kevin Spacey's wife in this, is she's this real estate agent, and she tries, selling these houses, but she keeps, the king, as he is nicknamed, and they have the whole thing, even though she, is very early on, very upset with him and, annoyed with him because of, he's the competition, and then they sort of go beyond that.
They obviously work out their differences, is what I'll say.
Yeah. I mean, this is very much later into the movie, but it's very, yes. It comes out of nowhere and is, yeah. But then you've got and even all the characters in this are just they're all terrible people, aren't they? None of the...
I think I put a note in here that they all need to go to therapy.
Yeah, they're not...
for real. They're all awful people, and...
Well, I would say, except for Angela's the girl that Lester wants to get with, she's the only decent... she's not great, but she's not...
Her and, I'd say... Ricky's... Is it Ricky?
Yeah, he's the
his
creepy
mother?
guy. His mum, yeah.
She just seems like she's drugged up or something. She's out of it. So.
Yeah, I think it's probably to do... I think it's not explicitly said, but I think her husband, who is a big part of the film, is very abusive, and he's probably...
Yeah.
So... But they're, her, Alison Janney and Mena Suvari's characters are the only decent ones, because everybody else is just awful. They're not...
Everyone else just needs to go to therapy, work their shit out.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah, so I guess since we're talking about the characters, I think this is a very good assembly of actors, and it's a pretty great lineup of performance. I don't think there's any really bad performances.
There's no standout terrible ones. Everyone holds their own. They're all good actors here.
Yeah.
Because sometimes in movies there's a couple of ones where you're like, God, your acting is terrible.
Yeah.
But I couldn't think of any in this where I'm like, hey, your acting's bad. They were all good.
Yeah, it's all they're all pretty, decent to, really good in certain aspects. Kevin Spacey, I don't feel comfortable saying he's good at things, but I mean, he's really good in this movie, and it sucks that he's a terrible, terrible person. But, I can't deny, I have this thing where I know people, I know there's bad people, but I cannot deny if they do something, actors or directors or writers or whatever, when they do create good things.
So, separating the art from the artist sort of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, no, I think the entire cast they all work really well in this, and they're all bad people in varying ways. Lester is doing tons of things. He's after a teenage girl, which is not good, and he's smoking weed, which I don't know what state they're in, so it could be legal, it could not be, I don't know.
I think it was all illegal in the 90s, because I'm pretty sure
maybe, yeah.
the wife, Carolyn, Carolyn,
yeah,
says something about illegal substances. So I think in the 90s it was illegal still.
Okay. Well, yeah, anyway, he smokes weed, and he blackmails his boss at his job, and then he just, I mean, this is jumping, this has not got structure to all of it, but
no. Probably watch this if you've seen the movie, because we're jumping from plot point to plot point.
Yeah, but Carolyn is cheating on her husband, then their daughter...
Carolyn's story arc, I think, is similar to Lester's, but not quite as illegal. She's miserable with her life, going, I don't like my husband, I want to find something elsewhere to make me happy, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and then she gets with an older guy. He looks older. He's got greyish hair, so he's probably older.
He'd be that much older than her, but it's a little bit older.
Yeah. Then they have their kid Jane, who's just a not particularly likable girl. She's quite because again, this is just not just going all over the place, but her and Ricky are very much because they're kids, they're teenagers, But like they're just like not healthy people, and they're very toxic people.
I think that's a note I made, is literally none of the relationships in this movie are healthy, except maybe the two Jims, who are the gay couple that live next door.
Yeah.
Who look like they're thriving.
They're having a really
none of these relationships are healthy. It's either cheating or abuse or, the Ricky thing.
Yeah.
Which is just creepy.
Yeah, which feels weird, because we're introduced, right up front to Ricky, and his first thing we see him doing is he's recording Jane with the camera, and I'm like, I'm kind of like, there's no way. I mean,
I'm pretty sure it's a crime.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way a girl would be into a guy who just starts filming them without their consent. That seems
It is a major red flag, love.
Yeah, I'm just like, this is why this is a movie, because if this happened in real life, it wouldn't, nothing.
Oh, my mother would yell at me going, "You're a fucking dickhead." And she would probably say that to me. She'd be like, "You're an idiot."
Yeah. It's,
This is criminal behavior.
Yeah. And I do think, though, because the girl, Jane, as we see her, she's looking at, getting
a breast augmentation, so wanting to get them bigger.
Yes, thank you for saying that. I didn't feel comfortable saying that, if I'm being completely honest, but...
That is all good.
Yeah.
She's obviously very insecure, and it's like, well, I can't do any better. This guy likes me. I might as well take the opportunity, which is very dangerous. Don't do that.
And it's probably also to do with the fact that her friend gets the attention because she's the more traditionally attractive one. She's blonde and she's thin, all that, whereas Jane is not traditionally attractive in sort of that sense. But I do think it's like, I mean, that's not, I mean, I don't, like, it's not, the film isn't saying that's a good thing, what Jane and Ricky getting together. It's not a good thing. It's very toxic. It's a very, unhealthy relationship between them. And, it just, this movie really portrays relationships.
Yeah, don't model any of your relationships on this movie, and if any of them are similar to it, leave, run, don't look back.
Yeah, unless it's like the two Jims, then that's probably okay. Yeah.
But we also didn't see much of them, so you
maybe.
Never know. But based on what you could see, the two Jims are fine.
Yeah. But anyway, so to sort of get back to the film and sort of how it happened, so. Leslie's, got his monologue, and he's talking about all these things, and then the next door neighbors move in with Ricky and his dad, who is very homophobic. Says some
horrendously homophobic. I even wrote, the homophobia hasn't aged well. Well, homophobia was never a good thing, absolutely not. But
and it's not meant to be. Like, we're not meant to like him, is the thing. It'd be one thing if we're meant to like him, but it's like he's not, likable. But, and we do sort of see, again, jumping around at the end, he does sort of kiss Lester.
Yes, because we love internalized homophobia.
Yeah, that's
which would go back from his army background, because ex-army.
Yeah.
Back in those days, particularly horrendously homophobic.
And then they've got Allison Janney, who's Chris Cooper's wife, who is very passive and doesn't really do a whole lot. And then Ricky, who's this major creep.
Yep.
And it's like
his face made me so uncomfortable throughout the entire run of the movie. I'm like, you make me physically clench. Just like, get away from me. No.
It's he definitely, and I don't like, because I think, because they don't pick like, I mean, I don't know, but they don't pick like a traditionally attractive man to play him. They do pick sort of an odd looking man to play Ricky, which I feel like,
I at first thought he was Tobey Maguire. I'm not gonna lie. I was looking at it going, is that Spider-Man?
Really? He doesn't really look anything like him.
I must have had a weird sun shadow on my TV, because I was like, I swear that's Tobey Maguire. Why is he being so creepy? And then went, oh wait, no, it's not him. Okay.
Yeah, he's he's a very weird, creepy kid, and we've all probably had those kinds of kids. I definitely know I had some weird fucking kids at my high school. I don't think they
had a couple.
I don't think they went that far, but they definitely had some kids with some who weren't.
Oh, we had some interesting characters in my high school, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, just like it. Yeah, I feel like that might be the most unrealistic part. Is a girl falling for a guy who just films her without.
Yeah,
consent.
I feel like because this is jumping to later in the movie where she's like, "I'm gonna be with him," and her friend's like, "You're a dickhead."
Yeah,
I'm sitting there going, "That is a reasonable argument here."
Yeah, they have a big falling out at the end, which we'll get to later on. Yeah,
I'm sitting there going, based on this dude's history, this is a fair call.
Yeah,
my friends said that to me. I'd be listening to them.
Yeah, because I feel like if you're in that position, you're not making you're sort of infatuated and sort of you're not thinking clearly, and you've got these sorts of
glossing over a lot of red flags.
Yeah, because I feel like this film, it tackles sort of love and that sort of way you get into with Lester and Angela, which is not okay, but it sort of shows the sort of way in which you could sort of be, because he doesn't realize that Lester doesn't sort of clock that this girl he likes is a child, effective, like she's like sort of still a teenager, like she's not an adult yet, so he's but
she's very young.
Yeah, and he doesn't sort of clock that. But I think like the film doesn't portray anyone in a positive light, so it's fully aware of like the awfulness.
People are terrible.
Yeah, and it's not. Yeah, it's sort of like the film doesn't have that ending. It sort of stops before that and has a different sort of goes on its different course. Yeah. So what to sort of get on track with the film? What notes did you make around this point? Like, because we're still very early on into the film.
Still at the beginning. A lot of things are just people need to go to therapy was my main one, because I'm like, what? And that I have a note here that links to the last point. Why are all the men in this movie creepy? I'm like, why?
That is true. Most of them are. Yeah.
I did notice, particularly at the start of the film, that they used like the camera angle, like not the angles, more so the lighting, to like depict, like with Carol and his wife, they used a lot of like shadows and darker lighting, but whereas with Angela, they'd use a lot of like spotlights and bright lights on her.
Yeah.
For that juxtaposition, I guess, of his brain going, oh, my wife is, whatever. Yeah. Whereas the new thing is bright and exciting and a light in his life, sort of thing.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, that's where we sort of meet Angela. They're at this basketball game, and then they sit, and then
so?
Yeah, it's on a basketball court, so I presume so. And then they do this dance routine, and I was thinking, like, man, I just find the whole concept of cheerleading dumb. I'm being completely honest, and I think. Well, what they make the girls wear for cheerleading is like, that can't be like, you're gonna feel a bit self-conscious,
why
right?
For women's sport, why they make them wear skirts?
Yeah, because it's like
cheerleading and netball in particular, they're always short skirts, and I'm like, but that's like jumping and bending, and it's not practical.
I'm just like, does that not make, like, I don't know, but I would imagine it would make at least a few people feel a bit self-conscious that, like, you know,
Yeah.
they're having to wear these, like, because in the scene they're wearing skirts, but they're not particularly long. Like, they're relatively short. And I'm just like, okay, well, that's not.
Yeah, I know some.
Helping
like,
things.
I think, like, the skirts they wore in the movie that, like, the twirly sort of more so cheerleading ones, they have, like, built-in, like, underwear, but, like,
yeah,
most don't. So I'm just like, do you, like, wear shorts underneath? Do you just...
It's.
I know that would make me uncomfortable if I was, like, jumping up in the air and everyone could see my bloody underwear. That would just be horrendous.
Yeah. It's a very just sort of weird, because I don't know, it's something that, like, I don't know, it just feels weird. Like, it just seems like what sort of the way school, like, a lot of, not all schools, of course, but some schools sort of are like, okay, you can't wear this, you can't wear this, you can't do that, or whatever, and then, like, but yet you can wear this, and it's just like, that's not, like...
It's not better.
Yeah, that's probably worse, honestly, like, because at, like, my school, they'd, for those outside of countries with uniforms, we had, like, we get free dress days, like, once a term or whatever, and they'd be like, you can wear whatever you want, except, and then they'd list a bunch of things you can't wear. So it's just like, okay, well, it's technically not free dress, because you can't, you know, it's not, like, the same, it's like, and then, like, you cannot wear insert clothing. I'm just like, cool, but why? Like, it was never, and it's just like, I mean,
yeah. Well, I went to Catholic school, so it was the same sort of deal, but a little bit stricter on everything.
This film, we sort of don't really see much of them at school. We see, like, a handful of scenes, like Ricky filming a dead bird for some reason,
which is super weird.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's, like, a red flag for, like, future, like, behaviors of harming, like, animals and children.
Yeah.
Like, they say if you have a fascination for that stuff, it is, like, a red flag for future behavior. So, really, Jane should have just run for the hills and never talked to this man again. But, I mean, he's a bloody bull conductor of red flags, and she's just ignoring them all.
Yeah, he wears, like, a suit, like, or, like...
Oh, matador, that's the word. So, not a bull conductor, he's a matador. The ones with the red flag in the bull pit thing. Anyway, yeah, he's wearing a suit, which is super weird.
I think it's sort of interesting looking, because seeing people in high school is interesting, because it's just like, you know, people, you know, in films and that, at high school and all these things, and, you know, you sort of see stuff, and it's just like like, Angela and Jane, they're just smoking, like, just by the school. No.
Nowadays is actually a crime. You gotta be within, well, in Australia anyway, you gotta be within a certain distance of a school to smoke.
Yeah.
Within the 90s, it probably was more common.
Yeah. Possibly,
but even then, you gotta, like, hide behind a building, even in, like, the 80s.
Yeah.
And they're just openly, like, smoking in the school grounds. I'm like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah, they, film's got a lot of interesting it's because I've seen this before, I sort of pick up on more mundane things now, like, I don't know, something about, like, there's this sort of stuff that happens that I'm just like, that's a bit weird, like, they got, like, Lester and Carolyn go to a party at one point, and then Lester just kisses her in front of a group of people to embarrass her, clearly, but it's just like, that's interesting.
A bit much.
Yeah.
And also, without her consent, it's extremely problematic, but...
Yeah.
It's probably one of the least problematic things in this movie, I'll be honest, but... Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah.
Not a good look.
Yeah. I think the problematic stuff starts when he starts having fantasies about Angela, and it's just like, okay, this is what's going on now, this is what is happening, and he's gonna deal with his business while in bed.
Yeah, that made me very uncomfortable. I was going,
Yeah. It's
It's disturbing.
Yeah, and like, he sort of as the sort of, there's the bit where Lester and Angela, and she's in that bath. The music, the score, is really strange at that point. It's very, like... I don't know if distracting is the word. It's very pronounced.
It's made its presence known.
Yeah. And I think, like, the score for the film in general is pretty nice. Like, I think it's a really nice bit of nice pieces of music in there.
Is it grooming?
I don't know.
That's what I wrote down, but...
I mean, he's not really, well... Because she's still under... He kind of makes his
feelings kind of known
to
her.
And I was gonna...
Which is inappropriate.
Yeah, and she is sort of interested in going along with it, but she's also underage, I think. So it's not really like she can do anything about it.
Because she's underage, it is ultimately he's the adult in the situation.
Yeah,
he's the responsible one.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I'm not entirely sure. Like, I guess it would depend on what state they're in. But, like, it's not, regardless of whether it's legal or not, it's not okay.
Still not something you should be doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Just because it's legally okay doesn't mean it's, like, morally right.
Yeah, that's yeah, because there's things you can do technically legally, but like that doesn't mean you should do them. But I find, like, because it's interesting watching Lester sort of develop, you know, because when we see him, he's very discontent and very well, he's not in shape, and we see him, you know, he gets into shape by the end of the film. But he
gets in shape for very odd reasons. It's to attract Angela, because she goes, if he was a bit fitter, and he goes, well, I'm gonna get fit and hot.
Yeah.
She's kind of fucked up, but anyway.
Yeah. I think that's, like, something a guy would do, and he's, we see him at various points of the film, and he's, working out, but he's like smoking weed as well, and I can't, like, imagine, like, I don't know, but I would imagine...
one counteracts the other, surely.
I was like, I guess it depends, well, because we see him smoking in a fair few of the scenes, like, after he meets Ricky, which is sort of a big point where he sort of changes his, where he starts to change his life and sort of become more, like he's younger, is when he meets Ricky and they get high together.
Yeah, he's trying to live out his youth. That's a big thing throughout the whole movie, is he's trying to recapture his youth and trying to feel young again and all that jazz.
And Ricky's, he sort of sees himself, or he sees sort of Ricky as a younger version of him, or something he sort of aspires to be, and then he sort of become friends, which is a bit it's a bit off, but it's not
it is bizarre. Like, it's a thing with adults who become friends with teenagers. I think it's a slightly different kind of grooming. Not so much for the sexual angle, but like a different sort of... I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's still bad.
Yeah, especially because he's just, using him for weed purposes.
He's becoming best buds with his drug dealer.
Yeah.
Classy.
We see has, he still smokes weed, and he just gets urine and passes it off as his own, which is just, like, not...
So also, like, I think I even wrote down, almost every activity in this movie is a crime. Because it is.
Yeah, they definitely
A lot of the things they're doing are illegal.
Yeah, they definitely do. A lot of stuff that, you shouldn't do. For various reasons. They're all, a lot of them are very sort of morally... They're all morally bad. It just depends sort of what sort of morals you are, I guess, breaking, because, some are on a more sexual side, some are on a drug side, some are on violence, on the side of violence and abuse, and, like, as I was talking about before, they're just not particularly likable people. They just say terrible things to things that I will not repeat in some aspects, because, like, words I should not say, because they are not particularly nice. But like I find that because yeah, this film is made up of bad people, but it's still interesting to what, like, it's not like I lose interest in the film because of these bad people. It almost helps to elevate it in a way of like...
It's like watching a car crash, in a way. Like, you can't look away.
Yeah, that's a way of putting it. Yeah, you sort of, because I don't know if invested is the word I would say I am, because I don't know, because
you want good things to happen to these people, and they kind of just don't do it.
Yeah, like, invested in isn't, I mean, I guess technically I am, but it's not because I want to see these things happen. I'm more
you want good things to happen to these people, and it's just not happening for them.
Yeah, and there's a lot of just like, and yeah, so we do sort of go back and, sort of go in between various characters. See Carolyn, she's going out for a dinner with the Matt. What's his name again? I forgot his name. I forgot the man's name.
Is it Buddy? No.
Buddy. I think maybe it is. Yeah, Buddy, the real estate king, he's got some very thick eyebrows. That's what I noticed on this when I rewatched this.
But, yeah, Buddy Kane. I had to look it up. Buddy Kane, the real estate king, who's got some serious, like, John Howard style eyebrows going on.
Yeah, and they begin doing things, various things. And then they sort of. And then he sort of tells Caroline about, he likes shooting a gun, because that's a thing that happens. And then, she gets a gun, and that sort of leads to sort of the end of the film sort of point, which I guess, like, I mean, we'll get to it at the end, but she gets a gun, which, is not, just sort of comes back later. Yeah, it's we sort of go in between various relationships of different intent. And Lester and his family have got a very hostile relationship. I mean, he picks up the asparagus and just throws the plate against the wall and shatters everywhere because it's, and I have to assume, because about a little over a year ago, we did Fight Club as an episode. Yes. And this came out the same year as Fight Club as well. And I don't know if we touched on it then, but but in this one as well, I have to imagine there are some people who kind of think that Lester's, like, sympathize and sort of, because people, like, really like Tyler Durden and are like, oh, he's this cool guy to aspire to, and I would like it to not be true, but I have to imagine there's going to be at least a couple people who think Lester is, like, not, I mean, aspirational is, like, the word I would use, but I don't think it's the correct word.
But that a lot of his behavior is justified.
Yeah, like, they would sort of be like, oh, well, he's, his wife doesn't treat him well, so who... I feel like there would be someone who's like, oh, well, his wife doesn't, give him what he wants physically. Why can't he go after a younger girl or something? And it's just like, well, I mean, that's not really the point. You're missing the point, because this feels like, because people misinterpret films a lot and see because just because they're the main character doesn't mean they're the good guy. Like, people sort of see all these characters as, aspirational or inspiring, whatever. And it's like, I don't think we're meant to like Lester. We're meant to be pretty disgusted by what he's doing. Like, and, I think he's a pretty awful person. Both as a character and the actor who plays him is also equally awful.
I think I did write on here that, because there is one particular scene where he starts having his crisis, like midlife crisis, and then he, like, kind of almost stands up to Carolyn.
Yeah, he's...
It's like they're at the dinner table and I think Jane must have been late to dinner or something, and it starts the whole shebang. Reminds me of before my parents got divorced. It was a great time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
They're screaming at each other. I felt right at home.
That's very sad.
Oh well, what can you do? You laugh or you cry, right? So
I guess that's true.
Yeah, with that meltdown, I was sitting there going, well, his behaviour here is almost justified, because she seems like she wears the pants and takes control of everything. Like the way they look, they have to present a certain way and be a certain way. And he's finally gone, I'm done. I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So that scene, I said his behaviour was justified. Everything else is a riot, a shit show. And but that particular meltdown, I'm like, no, that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, like, you mentioned they sort of have to look a certain way. The opening scene, he's talking about how clogs match, like, the pruning shears or whatever, and how that's not an accident.
It's not an accident, and she's all about keeping up with appearances.
Yeah,
actually quite common for the real estate industry, now that I think about it.
Well, yeah.
That whole world is very much about how you look and how you present yourself, because you are what's selling the properties. Mm-hmm. So I think that translates to her character. She's very much about keeping up with appearances. Everything's fine. Nothing's an issue here. We are a happy family.
Yeah.
But then you get inside the house and it's a nightmare.
Yeah. The film is, like, again, that's a sort of comment on, sort of society and the world we sort of live in, is people, they are trying to keep up this appearance of, everything's fine, everything's great, nothing's wrong with the world, our life is great, and then you delve in and you're like, oh, this is not good. Everything's not as it should be, which I
I think everyone does that to some degree. Like, they have the way you present yourself to other people versus who you are when you're at home being a slob by yourself. But this is to a degree of, to the world, basically.
Yeah, it's trying to create an image. And I feel like you see it with you sort of get those famous, like, Hollywood families, like Will Smith and his family, or people like that, who are trying to create this image of
our family is fine. What are you talking about?
Their life is perfect, and then eventually the mask has to, slips at some point.
The cracks start to show, which this movie does depict well. It starts off everything is fine, and then the cracks start to show, and then the end of it, not a whole lot left.
But too bad. Even at the beginning, Lester's like, he's very discontented with it, because he's not really trying to be involved. Like, he's there, but he's not trying to help keep up the image. He's just like,
he's just going with the flow, going through the motions of life and all that.
Yeah, like we see him at his job, for example. He's on the phone with someone, and he sort of has that character, I guess, when he's talking to customers, but then when he's talking to the new guy, this new sort of head guy they have, he's very different in that sense. And later on, and towards the end of the film, when he's with Angela, he portrays himself in this way, which is a very uncomfortable moment, purposely so, because she doesn't like it, and she's like, oh shit, and then she goes away, and he's like, what was that? And then but the film is it's saying a lot of things just sort of about the world and just people in general,
how image obsessed the world really is.
Because there's a lot of this, and so and this was sort of in 1999, so this is like just before the turn of the century, and
the late 90s, early 2000s was very big for celebrity culture and paparazzis and
TMZ
reading all the tabloids and TMZ, and
the
height of that was the early to mid 2000s. So that was just the start of it, really.
Yeah.
Before we had things like, well, social media where people can go, no, this is my side of the story, hello, very easily.
Exactly. This is, that sort of era of, like, people can say sort of these things, and then there's no real,
And also, we're in the era of, like, influencers, people who keep it real and relatable is, like, trendy to do, not this, like, unachievable goal.
Yeah. I can't stand those kinds of people, honestly. They just...
Yeah, that's
insufferable.
Fair. Just saying that as a general trend sort of thing for the time versus now. So.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think, and again, sort of influencers do try and portray an image of positivity.
Who they are. Yeah, a lot of them, it's like, because I only tend to try and follow the ones who are like, look, I keep it real. Not the really crazy, the really rich and out of touch ones. They do my head in.
Yeah.
But they portray this image online of like, my life is perfect. I'm going on these holidays. Yeah. But then they keep a lot of it out. So that's kind of what this movie does well. The whole keeping up appearances, but then it all starts to crack, as it always tends to do.
Yeah, and sort of, focusing on the whole, because, they don't really try, because, like, they don't really try and fix any of their problems. They just sort of keep digging themselves into deeper holes.
Yeah, I did find that. I'm like, you're making this all worse for yourself, guys.
Yeah, they don't do anything to make things better. They're just like, whatever, like Lester obviously doesn't care about anything else except for Angela, and that's sort of what his whole sort of goal is this one person that he wants to be with. So he doesn't care about anything else. So he doesn't want to try and fix things beyond himself. He just wants to make himself feel good without really thinking about those around him, or trying to, like, because there's a bit earlier on in the film where, he gets, made redundant, he's going to be made redundant from his job, and then, he tries talking to his daughter, but she's sort of just like, well, you can't just start talking to me and acting like you're my friend just because you had a bad day, and it's like, well, that's sort of, I think people try and do that kind of thing, and they don't mean it. Like, people ask about all kinds of things, and it's, like, you don't know if they actually mean it. Like, maybe some people are just trying, or they're trying to, I don't know, I just think some people try to seem genuine, and then, in doing so, they just seem more ungenuine, and then, like, that's what Lester's doing early on, and then he just stops caring.
Yeah. Another thing I did note, it's very off topic from our last thing, was I did notice throughout the entire film there was like the use of roses a lot.
Yes.
I think to tie in all the stories together, or I'm gonna guess so.
Yeah, well, because the film, they talk a lot about beauty and all these kinds of things, and like Ricky films a paper bag floating in the wind and calls it beautiful. It's just
Which is weird, but sure.
If you're that pretentious about things, then I guess it's beautiful. If you,
just screams pretentious film dickhead in my brain. I'm like, okay, son.
Yeah, but like the rose is also a very sharp contrast. They're very, not, I guess, vibe. They pop, and they sort of help, and they sort of make.
Yeah, because they in all the fantasies of Angela, there's roses there, and then she has Carolyn has roses in her garden, and then there's roses in their house, and it's kind of like that recurring thing that ties everything together almost.
Yeah, I do know. I feel like I read something about it.
It would be something. It would be intentional. Something like that is usually intentional.
Yeah, and I just found something that, it says they're sort of the illusion of beauty, or superficial beauty, they are, common, and they're very much sort of again, they're portraying something, but it's not real, because it's sort of like it's sort of not, it's trying to portray one thing, but it's not reality, is what it's sort of trying to portray. It's sort of doing more to, like, because roses are, expensive and that, but in reality it's not that. Like, it's doing a lot, and roses, give sort of represent things, but it's not always as it seems, I guess.
Because, well, every rose has its thorn, in the words of the classic 80s rock song. And I guess that's kind of also what this movie's doing, because it's like every rose has its thorn. There's always issues within the beauty, which is kind of the overarching thing of this movie. There's always something underneath the superficial beauty.
Yeah, exactly.
Of what you create.
Yeah, and I think, like, I guess that's sort of the thing with Lester and Angela, is he's sort of looking at her physical beauty, but not going beyond that, and not considering the fact that, the age and all that. It's more just, like, superficially speaking, that's why he wants to be with her. It's a superficial thing. It's not there's not anything else really beyond superficial looks and all that. But there's sort of various things. Yeah, Ricky, him and Jane get together, have various scenes from, across the house and everything, which is a bit awkward. And then, like, they spend time together, and then we get the sort of video that we see that's at the beginning of the film, which we touched on is not particularly necessary, and I don't really like that it's in there. Like, at the beginning, I'd rather just it happens at that point in the movie, personally.
Yeah, it did seem disjointed, but I think we covered that a fair bit earlier, so...
Yeah. And we see, that Ricky's dad has all these guns, sets up later, and then...
And that he also has Nazi paraphernalia. I don't know if we can brush over that, because it makes sense, but it's also very problematic.
Yeah, I don't know why you would want I don't know why you'd want to be like, I'll take a Nazi plate.
It's just so random. It's like, why that plate? It looks pretty generic.
Yeah, and...
It doesn't need to be, affiliated with the Nazi party.
And I wouldn't have even... Because, there's no sort of obvious Nazi symbols or anything until you flip it over and there's a swastika on the bottom. You're like, oh, there's the... Right, well, that's just not... Yeah, it's sort of...
Also, with the character, because he is... military, horrendously misogynistic and homophobic. It's kind of one of those things where you're like, nope, that makes sense. It's awful, but it adds up.
Yeah, he's not the Colonel Frank Fitz is not the Chris Cooper's character is not a particularly likable person,
No. Not at all.
Yeah, it's not. They're not. But yeah, no. They're all. But he's and it's like, just because, like, the military didn't foster an environment that was promoting, being gay.
You can't blame them entirely for someone's behavior.
Doesn't excuse being a bad person. Like, it's not how it works,
It's like, it's not entirely the military's fault that you're a dick.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely didn't help that environment.
No, it doesn't help, but you can't blame them for someone's personality.
Yeah, it's like, it's partially their fault, but it's not entirely their fault, which I think is the difference there, I guess, is it's like, it's like, I don't know. It's a very sort of interesting thread, and it's sort of like, it's not unnecessary per se, but it's sort of a bit, it's very sort of abrupt when he's talking about the two gyms and the language he uses.
I was like, okay, even for the 90s that was a lot, but
yeah, because you don't really, I haven't heard that word recently, which is a good thing. It's not a pleasant word, but
No.
Yeah, I guess it also kind of, like, I guess could sort of enforce the stereotype of, like, all homophobic people are secretly gay, which isn't true. They're just really, really awful people who just hate gay people for no real reason. Like, it's not, like, not all homophobic people, are gay.
That is true.
I mean, there sure, some of them could be, but I don't think not all.
There are some, but I don't think all of them are. I think they're all just awful.
Yeah, and sort of, and that sort of comes back later. Ricky's dad's sort of internalized homophobia and his sort of internalized the anger. But yeah, Lester, he's working at a burger joint, because he's just after, a job with the least amount of responsibility is what he says.
Which is what he actually said. He's like, I want the job with the least amount of responsibility. I'm like, I feel that.
Yeah. And then, and we see him there, and he's flipping, again, because he's going back to his, he talks to Ricky during the film about the whole, he, was flipping burgers just so he could buy an 8-track, and, and then, he's going back again to relive his childhood, and that's when he catches Caroline cheating on him with,
it's Buddy, the real estate king.
Yeah. And they, just go through the drive-through, and he hears them...
Like, if you're trying to hide an affair, they're doing a terrible job at it, just saying.
Yeah, it's very, well, I mean, of course I don't know how big a deal, like, how much people would know about the real estate king and his sort of, or, Carolyn's sort of status, but I would have...
He'd probably have some sort of advertising on his car, or something.
He's probably got, like...
Especially if he's the king, they'd all recognise what his car looks like.
Yeah.
So,
and then, they're
if you see him parked in a motel, you're going to assume something's going down.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. And then, they drive up to the drive-through window, and they're still, like, going at it a bit. I'm just like, you guys can't wait.
They look like they were, like, about to start some foreplay in the drive-thru aisle, which, if I worked in a drive-thru and saw that, I'd probably vomit. Yeah. Like, guys, keep in your pants for, like, 2 more minutes, please.
Just, like, just like, I can't imagine, maybe it's it's so...
It's a lot.
I can't imagine that many people are that horny.
Crazy?
Yeah. And, because I'm like, I think most people would be like, okay, let's not do this while we're just about to eat food, like...
Yeah.
Eat
you'd think.
Yeah.
You'd think, and you'd hope.
Yeah. And then, Lester, he catches them, and then she gets upset, and she screams. It's like, well, I mean, you are cheating on your husband. Because at this point, Lester hasn't done anything, like, well, he's been very creepy and inappropriate, which is bad enough, but he hasn't done anything physically with her.
Yeah.
It's not okay what he's doing regardless, but he's not, doing,
He hasn't touched anyone.
Yes. He is not. And so this sort of gets to sort of getting towards the end of the film. But like Jane and Angela, they sort of have their big fallout, and they have this big argument about Ricky, and I'm like, yeah, no, Angela's quite right. Ricky's a fucking psycho. He's not
Yeah, that's what I was saying before. I'm sitting there going, if my friend said this to me, I'd be listening to them.
Yeah, because it's like, they've been friends for, we don't know how long, but a fair amount of time. It's
implied that they've been friends for a while, at least, because they're in the same cheer dance team thing.
Yeah.
So.
And then there's just this, guy that has been there for a few months. Like he's not been there long, but I'm not entirely sure how long he's been there. But it's been,
not long enough to bail on one of your friends for.
Yeah.
Well, no guys are really worth doing that. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's probably not worth ruining a friendship for a relationship.
No, definitely not worth it. Wouldn't recommend. Not that I've personally done it. I just know people who have. Terrible fucking idea.
Because, like, at the end of the day, especially at, like, that age that Jane and that are at, it's like, it's not worth it. Like, you're a teenager, like, it's not, like, a lot, I doubt. Well, I don't know, because they plan to run away together.
Which is never a good idea, holy dooly.
Yeah, it's not it's not recommended to run away at, like, 16, 17 years old, and however old they are. It's, not okay.
Not a good idea.
Well,
running away from your problems is never a good idea, really. I need to start telling myself that, really.
Yeah. It's not, they have very, and sort of, getting towards the end of this, it's getting to the, Ricky, the reason why he's with, Jane is his dad sees a video of him filming Kevin Spacey working out in the garage, naked.
Which is super, super weird.
Yeah, I don't know why
Why are you filming that? Why are you lifting weights in the nude? That's really unsafe, as well. It's like people who cook naked. I'm like, that is so dangerous. What are you doing?
Yeah. It seems, especially if you're working with, like, oil or a fry pan, just any hot piece of cookware. It's probably not, or anything sharp as well. It's probably not recommended.
Even at the gym, I'm pretty sure they're like, you have to wear shoes. Like, some people take their shoes off to lift weights, but they have to be supervised. You can't just lift weights in your garage with no clothes on. That's weird.
Yeah. And then, there's sort of actually a bit earlier, just before Ricky is kicked out, where he goes to roll a blunt for Lester, and then there's the weird bit where there's part of, like, the wall is blocking him, so Ricky's dad thinks he's giving Lester he's sucking which is very it's a bit odd. It's a bit oddly comical, if I'm being honest.
Probably because his dad's a humongous homophobe, so it's just like how he'd be more offended by his son being gay than being a drug dealer. I'm like, something's not right here.
Really is hell bent on convincing his dad he's gay so he can be
so he can do drugs.
Yeah, he can leave and not have to deal with his dad getting on his back about doing drugs as a teenager, which, like, I mean, his dad, like, putting aside his dad being a bad person, the whole drug thing, he's not wrong. Like, I think he wants his son to not be doing drugs, which is fairly reasonable. It's just that the rest of him as a person is
it's the wrong approach, though.
Yeah, abuse, I don't feel like that's going to help people abusing anything, really. Like, any sort of drug or alcohol or anything like that.
Yeah, I put in here, because there was a whole scene about when they're filming, and Jane goes, I don't like my dad. It's like, do you want to kill him? And all that sort of stuff. I put, if anyone's dad deserves to be killed, it's Ricky's, not Jane's. Because Ricky's dad is abusive and problematic and a bunch of things. Whereas Jane's dad's just a bit depressed with some very inappropriate feelings.
Yeah.
In comparison, like, they're not good. Neither of them are good.
No.
Absolutely not.
Either of them was my dad, I would not be happy.
Oh. I would move out. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I guess because I say that because Ricky's dad is actually causing physical harm. Emotional abuse is still perfectly valid. Absolutely.
Yeah. I find, like, I find this last, like, 20 minutes or so where all the sort of major characters are you know, very close by, and they've got all these things, you know, like Angela's talking to Lester about how he's worked out, and he tries hitting on her, and she's like, I don't like this, and she goes, when? I'm like, yep, that seems pretty reasonable. Because, you know, throughout this film, she's very open about who she slept with, and, you know, she's willing to do this to get stuff, which, you know, is just sort of a projection of, like, her insecurities, because, you know, she's, goes sort of on and on about she likes it when men stare at her, amongst other things, which I mean, like, is, like, a sort of persona that she is making and trying to sort of present. Again, it goes back to that whole thing of people are trying to present a persona or an image of these things, regardless of whether what they're portraying is good or not. But I think, because as teenagers, I don't, like, Angela's not, she's lying.
She's lying to try and fit into that, like, societal pressure.
Yeah, but, like, she's a kid, and
Yes.
It's not really her fault because of, like, various things, but she's, like, the most, you know, likable person in this, and she seems like the one person that I'd be like, if I knew them in real life, I'd probably be like, yeah, we'd probably get along, more or less, like, but, like, she's the only one I'd want to be friends with and want to know.
The rest of them are just so unlikable.
Yeah. And, you know, I think, like, Angela's really justified in, you know, getting upset with Jane, because it's like, Jane, he's a creepy guy. Like, the first time they didn't even meet, like, he just was filming her, and that's, like, their first interaction together. It's like, what the fuck?
Pretty much.
But, yeah, and then, yeah, you know, Ricky's daddy, you know, he kisses Lester, and Lester's like, oh, I'm not into that, that's a bit, that's not any...
Yeah. I was gonna say, that'd be good acting from Kevin Spacey, because he managed to, like, say no to advances from a man, but anyway. But, yeah, that was tackled well, like, it wasn't like he just did it because he felt like he had to, but he wasn't, like, angry at him about it either. It was kind of just like, no, thank you.
He was just sort of like, yeah, sorry, apologies, you've got the wrong idea. Which is a pretty reasonable way of taking that,
yes.
Honestly.
Because you see sometimes when that happens, people get angry, or they're just like, don't say anything, but I feel like it was just like, no, thank you, moving on.
Yeah.
Probably the right way to approach that, too.
Yeah, and then, yeah, he leaves, and you know, the first time I watched this, I'd seen an image, I think of this film, of Kevin Spacey lying down in a puddle of blood. So I kind I was like, right, so I kind of assumed, but I didn't really understand the like, how it would get to that point. I was just like, right. So he's probably
that with no context is a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, and then, yeah, Lester, he goes and he meets, Angela, and they, you know, start doing things. But then she's like, I'm a virgin, and he's like, oh. And then he sort of, in that moment, realizes, like, oh, I probably shouldn't be doing this. Yeah. Which I think is good. I think it's
I'm glad
nice
that he did not decide to do anything after that realization.
Yeah.
Because if he did, that would have been extra problematic.
Yeah, and I feel like if that had happened, it would be endorsement. Whereas, I feel like because him not doing it, like, because in that moment he sort of gets a redemption, like
a slight redemption.
Redemption, but like because he realizes that moment, like, oh, this is a child, right, and then he stops what he's doing, and then she feels bad about the whole thing, and like, he's like, no, it's not your fault, you know, because it's not really her, like, because she's still, like, a kid. She's not capable of, like that, like, the different, like, he's not, you know, she's not capable of, she doesn't know better, is, I guess, the way to put it.
So he's the adult in this situation. He's the one who should know better out of anyone.
Yeah, and he does, and he stops what he's doing, and then he makes food like a dad would,
Which is super weird considering what just happened. I'd be like, what?
Yeah, but sort of, and then we sort of, and then she asks, they start talking about Jane and everything, and then she asks him, how he is, and he sort of has, and I don't know, I really like that moment where she asks him, like, how are you, and he sort of has a moment of, like, nobody has asked me that, and I feel like it really works, because, it's sort of like, people don't, because we sort of see that, like, people don't really care about him, people just sort of walk all over him, or they get angry at him, or whatever, and so having someone just be, just asking that kind of simple question does a lot for him, and sort of makes him sort of look at things in a different way. And then, like, he looks at the picture, and then his brains are blown out.
Yes. Which I did write down here, because I thought it was quite... I'm not sure if ironic is the right word. I keep using that word wrong. But if it's wrong, just... Yes. I've got the irony of Lester saying, I'm great, and then getting his brains blown out. I was like, that was something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think if irony is the word there.
I'm not sure. I just thought it was like he's going, I'm great. I mean,
it's very tragic that he suddenly gets a realization of, he's great and everything, and he sort of redeems himself as someone, and then he just immediately dies right after. And then we see all the perspectives of people involved. We see the Jane and Ricky, and they hear it upstairs, and then Ricky just stares at the dead Lester, which is again super creepy and unnerving, and like another sign that she should not be with him because he's fucking
everything
mental.
about him makes me violently uncomfortable.
Yeah, and then we see Angela in the bathroom, and she didn't do it, and then because it's sort of like, oh, well, is Carolyn going to do it? Because, she's the one with the gun, and we see her.
Yeah, she was with the gun in the car going, I think I even wrote it down going, and it's like, I will not be the victim, I will, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And then, we see a shot of her
and
walking.
And then, as soon as she said that, I was like, the victim of what? Your own actions?
Yeah, I mean, Lester, in his reactions and dealings with her, is like, no, I think he's relatively justified in being angry. Like, he's not going about it the right way, but he's justified in, acting the way, well, some ways, like, in some ways, the way he's acting with her. But yeah, and then we see, we hear the gunshot, then we see, well, we don't see Ricky's dad shooting him, we just see him going back to his house with a bloodied shirt and a gun missing.
That was my whole thing going, who's the one who shot him? Because at first it was implied that it was going to be Carolyn.
Yeah.
But then you see Ricky with the bloody shirt and the gloves, so I'm like, who shot him?
Yeah, it's Ricky's dad who, is...
Oh, he shot him, okay.
It's implied, he shot him. Because, there's like
I guess it could be implied it could be both, really.
Yeah, well, I think I've heard sort of stuff about it. I was like, it's kind of set up to be like anybody could have done it. Like any of these sort of 4 people could have done it. Like Angela could have shot him for her reasons. She's upset at him for all this. Jane and Ricky could have. Well, Jane possibly could have shot him if she wanted to because she hates him. Carolyn is obvious, and then Ricky's dad because he rebuffed him and all that. And that's just like, oh well, it's this guy who did it.
Okay.
But yeah, that's more or less the end of the film. Lester has sort of a final narration talking about
how there's beauty in everything, and it's kind of weird because he's dead, but also giving a monologue, and it's kind of weird, but
yeah,
anyway.
And he's like, well, because at the beginning he says, less than a year than now I'll be dead or something like that, and
true, it did, yeah, that's right.
And then he sort of ends the film saying, you probably don't understand what I'm saying, but someday you will, and then we cut to credits with the score playing over it, and then it's the end of the film.
Yep.
Yeah. It's
what happened?
Yeah, a
in
lot
that movie
of things happened. Are there any final notes that you wanted to touch on that we didn't really talk about? Because
I think we covered everything we covered everything I wrote down. Oh no, I just found one.
Okay.
I did notice how, like, as soon as all that, like, crazy shit at the end was going down, it was, like, heavy rain. Whereas there haven't been any other real weather in the rest of the film. It's all sunny and lovely and all that crap. But then, like, at the end of the film, as everyone's, like, getting, like, shot and gonna run away and everything's going down, like, the climax.
Yeah, the last
heavy
20
rain.
minutes or so, it is, heavy amount of rain. I mean, I guess because it's, the big dramatic finale, you need sort of a very dramatic backdrop to,
Yeah, I figured it was something, it'd be purposeful.
Yeah.
Most things like that are purposeful.
Yeah.
I just went, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not nice what happened, but nice the weather thing.
Yeah, it's a nice touch, because if it would, it definitely adds to it.
Yeah, if it was just like your typical kind of night, it would have been almost a bit jarring.
Yeah, it wouldn't feel...
okay.
Yeah. But also, maybe that would have helped it, because it's like, this could have happened sort of at any time, and it just so happened to be on this, random day. But I think, the rain's definitely a nice touch. I definitely don't have a problem with it.
I don't know, it was just something I noticed as I was watching it, more than anything else.
Yeah. Any sort of final things you want to say about the film before we rate it and wrap up?
Not that I can really think of. It wasn't quite as intense as Black Swan, which is one of the other ones I was on for. That movie was a lot. This one's not quite as much.
That is true. That is, go listen to that one. We had some very,
a lot happened. Some thoughts and feelings.
It's certainly a film with some things.
Content.
Yeah.
It's not for the faint of heart, I'll give you that.
No, it's definitely...
This one probably isn't... I wouldn't recommend it if you've had previous experiences with things like grooming.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Or if you've,
stalking or anything like that.
Yeah.
I would not recommend this film for you, because I don't want to trigger anyone by saying, watch it.
Yeah, it's not a film for everyone. I guess it doesn't affect me as much, because have not been in those kinds of positions before, which I'm grateful for.
Thankfully, neither have I.
But it definitely doesn't work for everyone.
I know of people who have been in those kinds of situations, and for them, I wouldn't recommend it, because I don't want to trigger them. Want them to be happy and live their best life.
Probably wouldn't go down well with some people.
No, so but other than that, I actually did quite enjoy the movie. I thought it was well paced. All the acting was good.
Yeah, it moved.
Be interested, which for my borderline ADHD is a good thing to keep me interested.
Yeah, because it's a film that could be very boring. I do think there are a few. I don't know.
There are some bits that drag on. It's about when it goes about the middle, I'm like, okay. Yeah.
There's certainly
this is dragging on.
Stuff that I'm not as interested in, honestly. Like the stuff with Jane and Ricky, I'm kind of like, I'm not as interested in what happens with them.
The scenes in there where they were just like hanging out and like talking to each other through the videos, I'm like, this is dragging on. Oh my god.
I'm not.
And
as
it's not a short movie.
That.
It's a 2-hour movie as well. So it's just
but it does
get
move.
on with it.
But it does move more or less for the most part at a relatively fast pace.
Other than like the few scenes in the middle, it was at a good pace. It kept me entertained.
Yeah.
Not entertained. I was terrified for a lot of it, to be honest.
you still were interested to see where it would go.
Yeah.
So what would you put on it as a rating?
I'd probably say about a 7.
Okay.
It's not something I'd rush to watch all the time because, yes, it is heavy subject matter.
Yeah.
But if I watched it again, if someone went, "Oh, let's watch American Beauty," I'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't oppose to it. I wouldn't be like, no, I don't want to watch this again. It was terrible.
Yeah, but it's also not something you just pop on and just be like, oh, let's watch a movie today. It's like, oh...
Yeah, no. You have to be kind of aware of the subject matter and go, can I process this today?
And you need to be in a right mindset.
A decent headspace.
At least if we're seeing it for the first time. If you've seen it a few times, it might not.
It's why I had to give up on The Handmaid's Tale. It was very heavy. It was really good. Very heavy subject matter. So I had to stop watching it because I'm like, I can't do this. This is too much for me. So
yeah, I'm usually alright.
See, I can see how that this could possibly trigger people, and it's quite heavy, especially if you're a victim of any of these situations. So yeah, as long as I think it's good as long as you're aware of some of the baseline subject matter.
Yeah. I did know the sort of basic plot before I went into it, and was like, oh, that's what it is about.
I roughly knew. I mostly know the iconic scene they show everywhere of Angela lying in the bowl, like in the whole thing of rose petals, and just they're all showering on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew of that, so I knew it was some kind of creepy lust thing. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and just conveniently cover certain parts.
Yes.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite films. I was worried that on this watch it wouldn't hold up as well. Cause when I saw this, Kevin Spacey had already been outed as a terrible person, and it didn't really affect my opinion on the film. If any, it hasn't aged well, but it kind of is like, well, Kevin Spacey.
To some degree, changed the subject from being female to male, and it's the life story of Kevin Spacey, really.
Pretty much, yeah.
When you think about it, which is a bit disturbing.
Yeah, it's a bit disturbing, but for me, this is one of my favorite films, and I'm giving it a very weak, I will say, a very weak 10. It might be a tad generous, but I don't really think there's much wrong with it beyond the fact that it's aged poorly in some aspects, but I don't think it necessarily it's not a film that is heavily, because there's films from the 30s and that are like, oh, that's very racist, and it sort of impacts my enjoyment. Whereas this is sort of like, you
kind of go, this was that time period. I can go, cool. It was the 90s.
Yeah,
a lot more things flew.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but I do really, really, really love it. It's still really great, and yeah. So thank you for joining me for this week's episode. We seem to just keep picking very
Yeah, you seem to give me all the dark thrillers with horrendous subject matter. Thanks for that, man.
Yeah. If you do another one, I'll try and pick a lighter movie.
That's probably good for me to get through the, there's a long list of movies I haven't seen. It's kind of a joke amongst my friends now, because it's 4 pages long. So, they're like, you have seen nothing. I'm like, yes, I'm aware. So getting through that list is probably a good thing. This was on there to watch, so
yeah,
tick it off.
But next time I will pick, I will look for a lighter movie that's not as, heavy in terms of what it's doing. But thank you for joining me for this week's episode.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah.
But if you guys are sick of hearing my voice, just let know, and I can disappear forever. That's totally fine.
Well, we've only done 4 episodes. We've done
one.
2 a year so far, so it's not, and there's massive gaps in between. Several months in between episodes.
Because I stupidly work a lot and don't have time. Because who needs sleep when you can have money, right?
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, thank you for listening to this week's episode, everybody. Check out all the other things. There's lots of episodes at this point. It's getting a very long catalogue of films that I've talked about. Check out the other things. Any final things you want to say before I end this?
No, I think I'm all good.
Okay. So yeah, thank you all for listening to this week's episode, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.